as part of a democratic world.
Ukraine's president there repeating pleas for the world and Europe in particular to come to Ukraine's aid. For more on this, let's bring in Radoslav Sikorski. He's a former Polish foreign minister and now a member of the European Parliament for the center-right Civic Platform. Mr. Sikorski, thank you so much for joining us. Let's cut right to the chase. Has Europe abandoned Ukraine?
I'll answer your question, but let me first correct the information from your previous speaker. Germany is not more dependent on Russian gas than other countries, quite the contrary. Germany only imports about a third of its gas from Russia, Poland 70%. You get most of your gas from the North Sea and from North Africa, and your own economy minister has said that Germany can survive without Russian gas. This is not about heating German homes, this is about profits of a few petrochemical companies. If we want to stop Putin, we have to do sanctions that work. The sanctions that have been imposed so far will work in a matter of months or years, whereas SWIFT works almost immediately, and it brought the Iranians to the negotiating table over their nuclear program. So I think this is a sanction that President Putin would notice, and we, who depend 70% on Russian gas, are willing to impose the pain of that on ourselves. So should Germany.
Right. Everybody will have to make sacrifices in this. The former president of the European Parliament, Donald Tusk, the chairman of your party, sent out a message on Twitter today saying, and I'm going to read it to you, "In this war, everything is real. Putin's madness and cruelty, Ukrainian victims, bombs falling on Kyiv. Only your sanctions are pretended. Those EU governments which blocked tough decisions, Germany, Hungary, and Italy, have disgraced themselves." You retweeted this message, Mr. Sikorski. What would have been an adequate response by the West to this aggression, in your opinion?
Well, I'm actually in Washington, and I have not recently talked to my party leader, but I'm glad that we agree, namely that the sanctions have to be proportional to the provocation. You know, some countries have sent Ukraine the arms to defend themselves. The United States, Britain, Poland, the Baltic states. Germany only very reluctantly agreed to suspend Nord Stream 2, and buying gas and oil from Russia means financing Putin's war. Let's be crystal clear about this. Do you want to finance Putin's war?
Putin and those around him are used to sanctions, though, and they are said to even have them factored into the calculations of this war, right? Do you believe that tougher sanctions, like kicking Russia off SWIFT, would that do any more than annoy him?
Well, this is the key distinction. They are used to sanctions on Russia because they will not pay the price of those sanctions. Their fortunes are hidden away in tax havens in London and the Caribbean, whereas SWIFT would work immediately. And of course, the most urgent thing of all is to send Ukraine the arms to defend themselves. Germany makes some very good arms. Why aren't you doing it? If you don't help Ukraine now, we will then have to spend much more money for a general arms race with Russia, and you cannot guarantee anybody that Putin will stop at Ukraine. If you read his manifesto of July last year, and if you heard his deranged speech to the Russian people full of lies, this is a man who's cut links with reality. This is a man on a megalomaniacal trip for some kind of imperial glory. And yes,
in the face of all this, excuse me, I'm going to have to interrupt you there. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in the face of all this, has been very defiant since this onslaught began. But he's also been extending his hand to Russia, offering to sit down and talk. Let's have a quick listen to what he said today and then get back to you, Mr. Sikorski.
I would like to address the Russian president again. Fighting is going on in the whole of Ukraine. Let's sit down for talks to put a stop to people dying.
That's a soundbite from earlier today. Now, Mr. Sikorski, Russia has signaled a willingness to talk in Belarus about what the Kremlin calls the neutral status of Ukraine. What do you make of that?
Ukraine has a neutral status and it's just been attacked. There's not that much to talk about. Mr. Putin simply has to take his troops home.
How can that be achieved, though? Because we're in the midst of a war and the West, or parts of the West, are not willing to go where you think it would really hurt Putin. So what can be done?
So they need to change their mind. They need to change their mind and start helping the victims of unprovoked aggression. This is a war of conquest. Ukraine has done nothing wrong to Russia. It just wants to be left alone. And Mr. Putin should take his troops home.
What has to happen to change those countries and those leaders' minds and
you have to
make them act?
You have to increase the price of aggression by imposing sanctions that work, namely SWIFT, by making Europe less dependent on Russian energy, for example, by creating a gas union and buying Russian gas collectively, by really going after the assets of his club of kleptocrats, his own stolen money, the money of his family. There are things that people like me have been arguing for years, and you are dismissing our worries about Russia as oversensitiveness. Now is the time, maybe the last time, to get real.
Radoslav Sikorski, member of the European Parliament and former foreign minister of Poland, with a very clear message. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
In 2014, the Islamic State burst onto the world stage.
A track record of brutality, executions, mass beheadings.
Let's now bring in Constanze Stelzenmüller. She's an expert on European and transatlantic foreign and security policy at Brookings Institution, and she joins us from Washington now. Thank you so much for your time. Many analysts thought Russian President Putin would not